Welcome to Drivetime Exchange. As rubber hits the road, hard talk meets great music. Monday to Thursday, 4 to 6 p.m. on Nett Radio, taking you above and beyond.
God! Hey! What's... Huh! Oi, oi! Tell them! Nibani call me one morning. Pico boy, I want to know what you're doing. If I have some grass in the yard, need cutting. And the man I have here ain't doing nothing. Every time you call me sleeping, when you see what she's snoring, anytime you call me grumbling, Pico boy, I want you to do something fast, fast. Cut the bush for me, hey, cut the bush for me. Cut the bush for me, Pico. Cut the bush for me. All in the back are begging you cut the bush for me. All in the front are begging you cut the bush for me. I want you to cut it up,
Cut the bush for me.
I want you to rake it up,
Cut the bush for me.
I want you to heap it up,
Cut the bush for me.
I want you to sweep it up,
Cut the bush for
God.
me.
Hey, hey. Watch me. Hit. Like you're afraid the man or something. This is mine and he can't do nothing. Only inside there and you're peeping. Look, come out and do the damn thing. But you ain't working for nothing. I sure to give you something. Look, I done finished cooking. I'm keeping the food for your cut the bush for me. Hey, hey, cut the bush for me. I said cut the bush for me. Cut the bush for me. All in the back are begging you cut
the bush for me.
all in the side are asking you
Cut the bush for me.
I want you to cut it up, cut the bush for me. I want you to walk it up,
Cut the bush for me.
I want you to heap it up,
Cut the bush for me.
I want you to sweep it up.
Cut the bush for me.
Well, everybody, good afternoon to you. And of course, welcome everybody, wherever you may be, Trinidad, Tobago, up and down the Eastern Caribbean. Those of you that stream all around the globe, we want to welcome you to New Era TT Radio, the heartbeat of the Caribbean, as we take you above and beyond. Of course, we are welcoming you wherever you are to the Drive Time Exchange. This is where we take you home in fine style. And of course, to marshal this Drive Time Exchange, we are led by none other than journalist extraordinaire himself, Tony Fraser. Mr. Fraser, good day to you.
Good afternoon to you, Charlo. How are things?
It's okay. It's a beautiful afternoon. Can't complain at all.
Yeah, we did not. Well, in my area, there was no rain today of any significance. I think there was yesterday, but it seems to have tapered out so far. So good to be here. Good weather is good weather, whether it's rain or sun or shine or whatever it is. We have to make the best use of it.
And that is exactly what we are doing.
Yeah, and I see you pulled up a piece of music there about cutting the bush, in line with what we're going to talk about today.
I normally try to find a song that can identify with whatever your topic is.
Right. Of course, that has the classical double entendre, which we won't go into, right?
No, but that is what it is. Good classic double entendre.
Yeah. All right, so Charlo, what we're going to do this afternoon is to look at this issue of the CPEP workers, the contractors and the workers, by extension, being laid off, fired, removed from the job. I'm not too sure what the right terminology is. The bottom line is that the contractors no longer have contracts, and therefore the workers have no contracts. And the figures keep spreading about the numbers. 300 contractors and I saw today another figure of 20,000 workers Previously, it was 10,000. That figure got doubled somewhere along the line. I'm not too sure how it doubles, but that's the figure before us. So, what we want to do this afternoon is not to roll back CPEP because that is a done deal by the government, and the government has taken its position on it. We want to talk about alternatives. As we all know, CPEP goes back a long way, and it's about social welfare, making lots of people who are on the periphery of society, giving them work and giving them an opportunity to earn. And to do that, we are supposed to have four persons this afternoon. I see Clyde was ahead, a lawyer, former trade unionist, politicians. I don't know which one of the hats he's putting on this afternoon, but Clyde, whatever, welcome to the program. And of course, Shiraz Khan, who is a farmer, sometimes a politician, sometimes a trade unionist. And in this role this afternoon, I have asked him to look at the possibilities for employing the CPEP workers in the farming industry and in other places. So we're going to go into that in a moment. I also expect two other people, a man called David Walker, who's an accountant, to look at some of the figures for us. And Dr. Marlene Atz, an economist, she said she would be a little bit late. So, Charles, if you can look out for her and also David Walker, that'd be great for when they come to join us on the excursion this afternoon.
Will do.
Let me start off. I had invited Ferdy Ferreira, who was with the crash program, it was called, back in the late 1950s. I had asked him to come, but he couldn't. He had something to do this afternoon. But I spent 10, 15 minutes on the telephone with him earlier today. He giving me a first-hand account of the emergence of this program called Crash Program. It came out of the deep south of the country in the Point Forte area. And the reason it came out, according to Ferdy, is because the Butlerites won the two seats in the area. And therefore, Dr. Williams and the PNM were anxious, I suppose, to get a hold in the area. And the crash program came up as a possibility to bring workers in, or bring people who did not have work into a program where they could earn some dollars. And of course, the program evolved over a period of time. It's been called several things, Jude, the name is now CPEP, and a number of other names along the way. It has evolved, it has changed with the governments that have come into power. One notable thing is that notwithstanding the fact that governments have changed, the program has not really changed. The governments, when they have come into office, have talked about changing it, making workers in the program eligible, training them, etc. I remember the NAR had one of the programs, the name of which I don't recall at the moment, but there are many names along the way. One of the interesting things that Ferdy told me is that while the workers were brought into the program subject to the PNM, he said they did a job on the governments. Well, talking about the PNM, but I'm sure it was the same for all of them. What happened is that the workers joined the PNM, and therefore, more than ever, they became PNM's responsibility. And he described them as a voter bank, that the PNM had in reserve for the elections that came forward. And they started making demands, exchanging their support for welfare programs over the period. So in a way, they triumphed over the government, who sought to, and did in fact, use them to win elections, because after the 1956 elections in the deep south of the country, the PNM prevailed and prevailed for a long time. I think the only time they lost after that The first time, I should say, was when Selby Whittleson won the Point Fortin seat under the NAL. Subsequently, they have lost in this recent general election. So that, and I say that so that we get a picture and an understanding of how this program was created and for what purpose. It was politically motivated to allow the PNM government of the period in time to win the Point Fortin seats over from the Butlerites. And over the years, notwithstanding whatever the incoming government on the 3 or 4 occasions that the government was changed, the same thing prevailed. There are a group of workers who have been brought into the process to earn something, but majorly to support the party in power. So my question now is, given this recent situation that I described at the top of the program, how can we, or is it at all possible, to transform the program so that it's not, I suppose it will never be totally free of political dependence, but how can it be transformed into viable economic projects which will engage workers in a significant kind of way? Shiraz Khan. I know Shiraz, as he told me, has put forward some suggestions some time ago. And Shiraz, are you still confident that this change in the program can be made?
Well, pleasant afternoon to Comrade Weatherhead and Tony and your listeners and viewers. I think that is very difficult where the URP and the CPEP normally used as political tools year go on, year come by different governments. Last government no different, the one before that was no different. In 2007 though, at Trinity High School, under the Patrick Manning on finding the solution in August of 2007, they had a consultation for 2 days there. And I proposed to the Prime Minister at that time, Patrick Manning, and he was shocked to hear about it for the first time. And I said that I've been talking about it for a while. The idea of PAMPEP, right? I don't know if Clyde can remember that. I don't know if Tony remember that. Right?
Go ahead.
I have proposed that because agriculture is a labor-intensive sector, whereas technology in other areas will continue to change things by computerizing and changing the way it is done. Agriculture still remain that even though you have to go 2 or 3 tiers, regardless if you want to put in container or off the ground, in the ground in a housing area under a shed, you still have to be labor intensive. We are not large enough to be mechanized like in the other countries that they can pick corn with machine and shell it one time. And on one side they get the corn and on the other side they get the trash. We don't have that land space and economically it's not viable. So my suggestion of using PAMPEP was basically training the people into agriculture so that you can move them on. And I see that some of that was used in the last couple of years, not to the effect that I would have liked to see, but to get the people to work on farm, but you must be training them in terms of animal production, in terms of vegetable production, root crop production. So when they finish their on-farm training with some level of classroom training by the experts, you would now have a person, and once given the support in terms of what they have done now by giving them land and money, but the support must be given. Otherwise, you will have the same way that the young people fall into a program now and try to do a farming and fall out the same way, because it is not something that is seen that is viable for them, because the problem you have is that many of the old farmers are already there. They can't go and pull bull or buy or go and do security. They are sticking to their way of production. Whereas if you have this training and you have the technology being shared among the new people that come in, and I'm not only talking about youths, because CPEP is not loaded with youths. CPEP is loaded with people of all range of ages, right? And what happened is that they can be given some assistance to the farmer and presently that existing now, be it in the livestock area, vegetable root crop, and the farmer in turns could give them something additional to what the agreement with the ministry of who pay what percentage. So the farmer is getting his work done, right? We cannot go with the system of the you come and you sign a book and you go on. This time is that you have to work. You can't have both gang with man collecting money, alleged that be going on and saying this thing is physically work. So you know you're going to get your work for your dollar because the farmer has to produce and the person who comes to assist them to produce will now have technology of workmanship of how to go and start his own farm. But having them in a classroom and then giving them land and money and not giving them the backup support in terms of marketing and all of that, or teaching them with the farmer how to market, you have a problem of taking them from stage 1 into stage 2, 3, or 4, even with processing, right? And that is what we had suggested for the Aripo farms when it was up for thing, because that was 1,176 acres of land. And we were saying that let us do a program there and test it and see how it goes. That is way back in 2017 and 2018. Of course, they didn't listen, right? Because if you have that amount of land that you can make available to people getting involved in agriculture, or by now your food import bill would have reduced by almost 30, 40, or 50%. So we have to look at how we could make this thing work. Politically, it may not satisfy them because what they did is pull some people, train them in some young people between the ages of 15, 18 or 15 to 20, 35 and train them, put them. I saw them on the news recently saying that they're there, they give them the land, they give them some money, but it's not enough and they don't have any support at all because they fall into an election free. So I think that farm support is something that is very alive today. Once they're willing to work with it, we can sit down and I can explain it out to them and see how we could get. I see it work in Canada. I see it work with farmers in Canada and in communities. So why we can't do it in Trinidad?
Okay, Shiraz, we're going to come back to you to find out the long-term reaction to your proposals by the government of the day and, of course, subsequent governments. Let me ask Clyde Weatherhead whether or not he thinks this movement away, whether it's Shiraz's program or some other program, is politically possible. Meaning that a couple generations, perhaps more than a couple generations, have been schooled to exchange their vote for social welfare programs. Can that be changed now by a political regime in power? Any political regime in power?
Tony, are you hearing me?
Yes, loud and clear.
I had a chat today with one of the persons who worked with the CPEP program when it started back in 2002. And he told me that that was under Manning's administration. And Manning's idea was that this program would provide people with social benefits and so on, and have communities have appreciation for the environment and maintain the environment by planting trees and planting this and that and the other, which was a very narrow concept of dealing with the environment in the first place. But these CPEP itself was run under SWIMCOL, the Solid Waste Management Company. And in that original program, which I think went on till probably around 2010 or thereabouts. The contractors who SwimCall engaged were given training in the afternoon time and so on. Basically training in running a business. They had NIB come in and talk to them about paying NIS and this and that and the other. And so the contractors were given training because part of Manen's idea was that people in the CPEP program could go on to be engaged otherwise economically in the society. I hear the same thing being said by the Minister of Public Utilities the other day.
Mhm.
But
In fact, Clyde, without cutting you, just to put some context, Ferdy told me that was part of the concept in 1958, so that it has been that the workers, after spending some time in the programs, they will be trained to do their own business and self-sufficiency and all of that. So it has come down. I intervene to say that it has come down from the inception of the program.
yeah, but in a real way, if we take today's numbers, let's assume that the 350 contractors do have 10,000 employees. The training under SwimCall was for the contractors, not for the workers. All right? I know at some point under the UNC, there was supposed to be some program for training people to, like women in the afternoon, to be able to do basic, it's kind of work to assist people who had disabled children and stuff like that, right? So under the SwimCall era, the workers who worked with the contractors, I can't say for, I have to say with, because they were paid by SwimCall. And they had to provide SwimCall with bank account numbers and so on. So SwimCall actually paid the salaries of the workers. What I'm hearing in terms of what exists under the CPEP Company Limited is that the contractors, according to the Minister of Public Utilities, the contractors hire the workers and they have to pay them and so on and so on. No, I have not seen one of the current contracts. I'm making some attempts to get one to look at. But if the nature of these contracts is that the contractors are supplying labor to the CPEP company under the Industrial Relations Act, in examining contracts, if it is a labor-only contract, the beneficiary of that contract is the employer. It's not the person who brings the labor. So that, for example, we have a Bell company where they make bricks and so on down Ravin Sab. You have a company called Brute Force, I think is the name of it, that supplies labor to the factory. So in a situation like that, if the factory is the beneficiary of the labor-only contract, then the factory is the employer, regardless of whether Brickforce brings the people or not. So similarly, if CPEP Company Limited has labor supply contracts with the contractors, with the 350 or how many of them, then the contractors in law are not the employer. CPEP Company Limited is. Now, it's very interesting because I've asked yesterday and today on Facebook, if there was no board at the time that a decision was made to terminate these contractors, because the minister said yesterday or day before that the board was now being appointed. This is a company This is not a statutory organization subject to a ministerial directive. Like Water's Act says that the board is subject to the general and specific directions of the minister. This is a company, CPEP Company Limited. In the absence of a board, no executive manager in CPEP could take a decision to fire all the contractors. I was told by somebody when I raised the question today, well, a senior manager issued the communication to the contractors. Well, of course he issued the communication, but who made the decision? Is it in the absence of a board? Was it made by a minister? Was it made by cabinet? By whom? Because if it is a registered company, cabinet cannot decide for it that it should fire people. Petrotrin, when it was closed, it would have been closed by a cabinet decision, but Petrotrin had to deal with the issue of terminating the workers. And the board of Petrotrin had to do that and make the arrangements and give directives and so on and so on. So if the labor only contract is what is existing, CPEP Company Limited is the contractor. Who made that decision? Somebody told me, well, it was in the UNC manifesto. I don't know. I don't recall seeing that. But even if it was, it is not for some politician to make that decision. Even if they want to direct the board has to make that decision to terminate people and not just terminate somebody for breach of contract. You terminating everybody. That certainly is a puzzle that needs to be unraveled.
Mark, so in your mind, and in your assessment, that the contractors have not been fired legally, that is.
Well, I am thinking that firing is not a proper action on the part of the CPEP company. The other thing about it is, if you terminate all the
contractors... Before you go on, so if it is not, then what can be done in the circumstances?
The contractors have to take legal action. That is up to them.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
So the other aspect of that is, if the contractors hire these people and the contractors have to have companies registered, the contractor no longer has a contract with CPEP, so he no longer has work for these workers. So there's no work for them to do, so they are surplus to the contractor's company's needs, which is defined in the Retrenchment and Severance Benefits Act as redundancy, because the Act says redundancy is a surplus of labor for any cause. So for the contractor, the labor that he's supposed to be the employer of, according to the minister, is redundant. So these 10,000 people or whoever number it is, whatever number it is, they have to be paid severance benefits according to the Retrenchment and Severance Benefits Act, because they are redundant. But I have not heard of any CPEP contractor issuing 45 days notice as the law requires. Or in expedient situations, they may forego the notice. But I have not heard any CPEP contractor go anywhere publicly and say, well, my workers are redundant, they are retrenched. Now, I heard the minister yesterday also say that the contractors are to be paid 1 month, whatever. He said pay. I don't know that they could get pay as a contractor. So if they have to pay them 1 month's money, and he said, well, they should do well by the workers and pay them. If you are terminating my contract as a contractor, and there's a notice period clause in the contract, and you are saying you are paying me in lieu of giving me no notice because you fire me immediately, summarily as a contractor, and you are giving me money in lieu of the notice, you cannot tell me that I must take that money and pay my workers wages or salary for that month for not working. So I want to know how the minister, the ministry, the government, whoever, CPEP Company Limited, can compel a terminated contractor who they are given notice period money in lieu of notice, can compel them to pay workers who are not working. So the question arises to me that this is a whole, if this is at the stage of they're talking about restructuring the program, if at this stage the politicians are confusing issues and making a mess, I cannot see that beyond this stage, when they said that within a month or two, we giving the contractors a month money and they should give the workers pay for not working, but we can't guarantee that the restructuring will take a month. The minister said yesterday, a month or two or so. So what happens after the first month? Even if the contractors say, okay, all right, well, we just get them out of the money. So this is confusing, again, political interference in my view in the operation of CPEP, and to extricate CPEP from that history of being a vote bank and a make work program. With all due respect, what Shiraz talked about just now doesn't necessarily have to come from something named CPEP. The same way you have that under the last administration, they talked about training programs for the youth and the agricultural program and so on. By the way, Shiraz, is a 2-acre farm suddenly economically viable in Trinidad and Tobago?
Yes.
In terms of vegetables and so on? Because
Yes.
from my experience in the ADB, a 2-acre farm is not viable in this country in terms of crops.
Technology does change.
Okay. So, sorry, Shiraz. I just want to wind up this part of what Clyde has said, and then go on to ask him, Anu Shiraz, the question. What Clyde has said, there are technical difficulties, legal difficulties surrounding the whole business of moving the contractors out, and by extension, the 10,000 or 20,000, whatever the figure is, correct figure is, workers in the process. With regard to the legal elements of it, spokespersons for the People's National Movement, including the political leader, have talked about legal challenges. I don't know if that is just talk or if it will become reality at some point in time. So the point I want to get at is that we are at a kind of fix in all of that. There are legal hurdles, to cover, and there are also employment matters to deal with. And the big picture in front of us, which I want us to concentrate on, has to do with how are we going to turn this thing around? Because 10,000 workers are not going to disappear anytime soon from the situation. So, Shiraz, you wanted to respond to what Clyde had said. Go ahead.
It is proven that even though somebody, because what we were saying is that cutting out, you give half of the lands to people with animals that do livestock 5 acres. We have proven in many instances, and the ministry has a policy now that they're not going to give nobody doing vegetables and more than 2 acres of land. We have examples where people living on one lot of land around their home are doing very well by choice crop and by the market that they have. I am very convinced, involving in agriculture, that 2 acres of land is plenty land to give somebody to do crops. Because you're looking around where there are some people that planted 1 lot and 2 lot of land, which is 100 feet by 100 feet, for years upon years, and they are still surviving off of that. They may not want to change and work regular. But I think that could happen come out like. On the other hand, if you want people to do livestock farming, like in some cases in other countries, in Barbados, take me. I want to take some time and explain this in Barbados. Barbados, you could take Barbados and put it in the Cuba Tabaqui Talparo Regional Corporation area, and it will fit there. But Barbados have a program where they have grass that they build for farmers, and it is a year-round thing that they have supply put on for almost 8 to 12 months. All because of management and how the systems work. We can do that here because we started it off. Because one of the things we could tell people, and I could tell you, is that in 2014 we started the Monjaloo Grass Bank project. Spent over $40 million, buy equipment, buy harvester, dredge, pond to make the project. 2017 budget, 17-18 budget, they say cut all contract labor, and all those workers went home. All over the country, perceived to be political issue because they were contract workers all over the country doing projects. They were sent home. Since then, from 2017 to now, all the equipment is just there rotted. The 416 acres of land in Monjaloo is in total bush. So we got to be serious about what we want to do. And let me tell you something too. Comrade Clark, the problem we have in this country is when a government change, and it happening all over, every time, that they disband some of the things that a previous government do. And what happened? Plenty people suffer because of it, right? I am saying is that we can take these same workers with a structure and have it working. Even if it's 2 acres of land or 5 acres of land, they would not give you more than that in these times. Those who have the 20 and the 30 acres of land, thank God that they have. It's not going to happen again because the program was done. The other thing I want to mention is that you have a system before where young people were trained in agriculture in the youth camp. Right? I don't want to go mention too much about it. But those systems have to come in place to take up some of these young people rather than they're going into the CPEP system. Because to me, all the years going back, is that people working from way back 20, 30 years and CPEP is their job. Right? And that cannot be sustainable for any country in terms of their workforce. It cannot.
Shiraz, I suspect one of the problems, and the question I'm going to ask you revolves around that now, is that if you have workers who have been working for 25 years in CPEP, or whatever the program is called, social welfare programs in which they do very little to earn whatever they earn, it's going to be a difficult transition and transformation of the whole mentality of that individual to start working in a serious way in a farm as you have described it.
Well, I am just trying to see how we could improve the entire system. Now, some people want to take that and make it their daily work program, where now other people calling for a natural environment to be able to have sustainable work. We got to take a decision. We got to make some serious decision about if we want to make them work until they come at the age of retirement. I see people who retire from other jobs working in CPEP. They retire from their regular job, either works or agriculture, and they work in CPEP. We got to understand something. And it's not only one administration. And let me tell you that. I'm not talking against one administration. I live in an area that 2012, before up to 2016, we had CPEP cut in our area. Because government change, we had no CPEP cutting in the area for the last 8 years. Right? we have these kind of problems happening here. So we got to fix it. But how do you fix it? When you put systems in place here, or you fight against systems in place, you become a target because you're talking against a government, how they're doing things and how to correct. And then what happens is that when you do get it corrected, you have a situation where government change in the next 5 years, and all what you build here is changed back to their old systems and how they operate. That cannot be sustainable, because we could look for solutions now, and it attempted to put into place and it not working, right? The politicians and them have to be able to think differently about how things. They ask us to work with everybody, but they are not working with themselves, with the other people. On the other hand, too, and people who listen, I am saying is, when you mentioned earlier on NAR with the program and you couldn't recall what it was about, under the NAR, they were looking for all the abandoned agriculture estates, right? And reviving the estate. They started doing, and that is how that reforestation rehabilitation came about. Because under the NAR, they was looking to go and clean back those estates and get it planted back, the trees plant, fruit trees and so on. When they lost the election, all of that was disbanded. Went back into grass cutting and painting of stones and them kind of things. So we had to understand things have been tried and was working under the NAR. I can recall that, right? But the thing about it is that probably if that was done because they wanted to plant, you remember the issue about the pomerac compared to the apple, right? They wanted to go and plant the pomeracs and on those estates and plant mango and them kind of thing. That was the idea behind it. Again, what have happened to that? We didn't see the importance of trying to reduce the food import bill from then, and up to this day, just keep climbing, and affecting the economy, affecting the people attitude towards work and them kind of thing. So we got to look and continue looking of how we could really make these programs and then benefit the country rather than being beneficial to the parties. I don't know how we're going to change. I have been talking about that for a long time, but how that will change, I don't know. But on the other hand, if you have people working on these programs and can be paid satisfactorily to have a good standard of living and paying the NIS and the income tax that I could benefit when they retire, I don't know where we are going. I don't
Clyde,
know
your response, is it possible? You sound like a doubting Thomas in these matters. Is this transformation of both the program and the worker possible?
Well, I think what Shiraz mentioned just now about the NAR period and other things he mentioned. The question is, what is the national plan into which the CPEP or some program that utilizes the labor that was in CPEP going to be used for? If we don't have we've never had an agricultural plan since independence. We've never, I have worked in the Agricultural Development Bank as a loans officer, as a university trained agricultural person. And for the 19 years I was in that bank, I have never heard of a national agricultural plan. So the fact is, unless we develop a proper national development plan for Trinidad and Tobago, then we could take these 10,000 people, shift them around, have them doing all kind of different things, call it sustainable because we have them on 10 days, we have them on other things, and what would we achieve if we don't have a plan into which we are deciding that this labor could be best used in the interest of Trinidad and Tobago? Then we will end up back with the politicians saying, look, we had 10,000 people there, 10,000 votes we could get, plus their families, and so on, and we will end up right back where we were. Do you know that in my community, for some weeks, the regional corporation workers come and cut the grass on the avenues. They don't cut the streets, which are on the side. They only cut the avenue. And for some other occasions, the CPEP crew come and cut the same grass. So CPEP was basically competing with the regional corporation doing the same work. What I was told that when CPEP was under swim call, that CPEP employees were like first responders if there was natural disasters and stuff like that. You remember they went up to Grenada after a hurricane and works up there and so on.
Yeah.
But they
I
were,
think that
remember,
was so under the PP government, wasn't it? If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
They became absorbed into an overall government program.
in terms of the corporations.
Yeah.
Well, but if they absorb you see, that's the thing. Were they CPEP still or were they corporation employees? And that, unless we clarify what it is that we want, because if CPEP was something then, it became something else under the CPEP company. The relationships change. What is the relationship we want now? What is the purpose of CPEP now? That is what we need to have a national discussion about. That is not just for the government to sit down and say we talk to a few stakeholders and we come up with something else, and you don't fire people and then try to decide what to do about the program. We should have had that discussion and then decide, well, if we have to go from A to B, this is how we need to do it. So that's why when the minister says in a month or two, maybe we could restructure the program. What you restructuring it to? What is the objective? Who is having an input into that? Who is deciding that? And so on. So
what this recent intervention? Yeah, what this recent intervention seems to me like is that the government of today, simply wants to replace the contractors and by extension the workers into their own voter bank. For when the time comes, not only voter bank but campaigning. I remember Jerry Yetming in his time with was it the PP, sorry, that he had charge of a gang that came out of whatever it was called at that point in time. So it seems to me that the objective here is simply to replace P&M people with UNC people, contractors and workers. I don't know if that's a fair assessment of the situation.
Well, if you take the words of the minister, that's what it sounds like. But you see, it's also couched in this notion of we will have something or create some sustainable employment. What is the sustainable employment? If you're saying that something that was wrong means that people end up working in CPEP full time. So what is the sustainable that is not that? What is it? If take Shiraz's proposal, let us take some of these 10,000 people, train them, get them involved in establishing small farming and so on, right? So they become productive, they contributed to agriculture. What do we need out of the agriculture? What percentage of what they are to produce is to be produced by them? Where's the plan into which they're going to fit? All of these things have to be settled before you just go and say, all right, we have 350 thing. We think plenty of them is P&M, so we shutting all you down. We fine everybody. So then what? So the question of from the minister's words, what you're saying there, Tony, is what seems to be about. In the absence of a national plan, a development plan for this country or even for the agricultural sector, what are we about?
Yeah. So Shiraz, what Clyde Weatherhead is saying is that, yeah, it's fine to have alternative work for the CPEP workers. However, it must be in the context of a transformation of what CPEP is at the present time, which, as indicated by Fudi Ferreira from the start, it was about a vote, developing a voter bank for the People's National Movement. And while the names have changed over the decades of its existence, when you think about going back to 1958, incidentally, another thing that he informed me is that one of the changes that Dr. Williams brought into effect with the social welfare programs was to get the bargains off the street, the bargains of the steel bands, those fellas, to put them in put them in a steel band, money in their pocket, get sponsorship for them, etc., etc., and transform. It surely worked in terms of the steel man. Whether it worked in the bigger picture is a different story. So Shiraz, what Clyde is saying is that this thing has to be transformed. There has to have an overarching plan so that the changes make sense. Otherwise, we're going to have another CPEP. Perhaps they will change the name and call it something else, but it will end up in the same way.
Well, Tony, it is something very simple, you know. If it is that you are talking, I heard the minister talk about reducing the food import bill by 50% or even less than. If you have a plan of how you're going to reduce the food import bill, first of all, you have to increase production. You have to increase acreage under cultivation. You have to have more input into agriculture in terms of human labor, right? You have to mechanize in some instances and you have to produce. I am saying is that if you have that as a plan, then come down to us down here and see how we could start working on that, how we could incorporate some of these guys coming out there, could go through our evaluation system of how it is that we could choose out the best of the best or best of the worst, or what it is and how we could reform them into agriculture. No, the issue here is that these people that you are now going to get involved into agriculture production is not only benefiting them, you know, because you're talking about the country being more healthy in terms of eating what it produced and knowing what it could produce, and then communicating with the farmers and training the CPEP people about using non-harmful chemicals and or organic kind of chemicals and them kind of things. We have it available. Is how much people willing to make the adaptation to use things that is less harmful and stop using so much of GMO seeds or whatever we decide on how we going forward. I think it could work. Beat the politician and them if they want to consider it. We all get down to work and start from the ground up. You cannot come with a big stick and say, hey, we're going to use the import bill. I wanted a plan. I want plan that. When we were exporting things like egg and sugar and that, those things are no longer there. Have we benefited from the land, the 17,000 hectares of land, 117,000 acres of land from Carolina Limited? Have we done anything by closing down Carolina Limited and taking you the land to increase our production in any way except for housing and factory? Right? We have a lot of people doing agro processing, but importing the commodities to process. Why can't we look at a serious way? Because you know, Tony, we have been talking a long time. The agriculture sector has been treated as the bastard child of the economy. Right? We are productive. We have done it in the past. Globalization take place. Look what is happening in the States. Look what's happening around the world. Can't we understand that food production in terms of some aspect of self-sustainability is important and critical to your development of your sportsmen, your children in education in schools, your athletes, your cricketers, everybody, that be able to come and do something better for the country. we got to understand that. Look, take for instance, we want to reduce our food import bill, but nobody tell me that how we going to get back the chemistry, food and drugs lab that shut down since 2014 to back into operation. 11 years now. You have that lab not in operation. How could we continue to talk about development, even with the CPEP workers, the changes or even agriculture sector, simple little things that will support the agriculture sector or the country, we are not paying attention to it. But when they say, they say, okay, we're talking about CPEP, that's where you go on. But those are things that could lead into making that will change program, will change attitude, will change technology, will change physical work into something beneficial that they could get a 2-acre land or a 5-acre land, and their family, the children, will be able to be comfortable off of that. And when they no longer can work, their children can inherit it. But if you don't give the people the proper land tenure, and like we suffering almost 30 and 40 years to get a lease, then we are going backwards, right?
Okay.
I'm sure people could remember those issues long time talking with ministers on your program, and nothing has changed. So the planning that Comrade Clyde is talking about is critical to have a national plan. Every year we talk about a national plan, but it never comes until they start to do their things with the whims and the fancies of winning an election. In fact, I could recall, and not only from one party, when they get into office at the time of the election, is to prepare how to win the next election. That is the concept. How they could start to do things to win the next election. What I am saying is that if you do the things to satisfy the need of the citizens of this country, you are spending every year over $60 billion, right? And you still have to go and beg people to vote for you. Something is fundamentally wrong the way we do things in this country.
Okay, we're talking about what is to be done with CPEP and how to convert it into a program that can bring rewards not simply for the farming sector, but for the national community, bring down the food import bill, build a more helpful and quality lifestyle, given the foods that we produce for it alone. All of that. We have Shiraz Khan, who is a farmer, and all kinds of other things. And Clyde Weatherhead, who has been involved in some of these aspects of, moving forward from what we have and what Fudi Ferreira called a voter bank into something productive and successful. So, Charlo, let's take a break now, and then we come back to get some more views. Still no sign of Dr. Atz and Mr. Walker?
No, but between the break, I could probably shoot them a call.
Okay.
All right,
good.
so people stay right where you are. We will be back shortly.
Your mid-morning just got better. Join Sir Charles for the mid-morning mix and mingle, where good music, real talk, health, and family matters come together, and your voice is heard. Whether you're at work, on the go, or just taking a break, this is the perfect mix to keep you engaged, informed, and entertained. The mid-morning mix and mingle, weekdays, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on New Era TT Radio, Nett Radio.
This summer, give your child skills of a lifetime with several boot camp. Children between the ages of 5 to 17 come enjoy Children Iron Chef Competition. Your child will learn to prepare healthy breakfast, lunch, dinner, CPR, first aid, and conflict management. With field trip, your child will be given free apron and certification upon completion. Call 492-7397 or 336-4935. Institute of Health and Fitness Company Limited, located at number 79 St. Vincent Street, Tunapuna.
S&H Rumbox, 137 Western Main Road, St. James, for all your retail and wholesale needs for alcohol and non-alcoholic beverages. Call us at 686-0599 or visit us at 137 Western Main Road, St. James. S&H Rumbox, drinking out of the box.
Advertise with us on New Era TT Radio. the fastest growing streaming platform for talk in Trinidad and Tobago. Audio and video ads welcome. Elevate your brand with us. Connect with us at newera@yahoo.com or call us at 299-5156. Now what are you waiting for?
Bringing you bold discussions, the hottest topics, and some tracks to keep you moving. The Drive Time Exchange on Net Radio, taking you above and beyond.
It's a shame, but we how we sell to blame. It's a shame, we how we sell to blame. We ask for new government, now they're taking every cent. Cost of living is the same. It is really a burning shame. The doctor say to pay as you earn, and Sparrow say you pay to learn. But my father say sharpening the axe, for when the collector passed to chip off the income tax. Plenty people is in misery, but it's taxing bothering me. Well, I am not working anywhere, so I have no income to share. But Mr. This and Mr. That, who are customer the payroll fat, is to see them shedding tears. Men like the Freighters and Fernandez. The doctor say to pay as you earn. Sparrow say you pay to learn. And my father say sharpening the axe, for when the collector pass to cut down income tax.
So we jump back inside of the afternoon Drivetime Exchange right here on New Era TT Radio. Remember, people, you can get us at newera.ttradio.com. And also in your browser at New Era TT Radio, you'll be able to get us on TuneIn. That will give you the opportunity to get us on all of your smart devices like your Alexa and Google Assistants, your smart TVs. I mean, you can put us almost everywhere. And of course, we are also streaming on our social media pages. You get us on Facebook, you can get us on Instagram, you pick us up on YouTube, where you can always go back and look at the programs, and also on TikTok. And of course, just to let you know also that during the morning period we stream on M&E TV, which takes our show to the cable channels. So if you're on Flow, you're on Digicel, you're on Amplia, you're on Trico, and a couple of other channels. Cable channels, you can also get us there in during the morning. All right, so we are back into the Drive Time Exchange, and Tony, you will have to unmute your microphones because I muted everybody.
Okay. All right. So, Chalo, I'm glad that you brought in Sparrow there with the income tax.
Yeah.
Just to inform our listeners and viewers that next Monday and Tuesday, we have dedicated the programming in the afternoon to pay tribute to the man as he gets to 90 years old. And we're going to have all of that music. We have confirmed participation from Zeno Constance, who is a man with all of the music, a researcher, and somebody who has quite a compilation of calypso and other kinds of music. So we're going to have him. We're going to have the mighty Chokdas, Professor Liverpool, who will also be amongst our guests, and Dr. Rudy Otley also. So we have a full lineup, plenty music. So come with us on Monday and Tuesday in the afternoon, 4:05 to 6 p.m. And as we pay tribute to Francisco Slinger for his many, many decades in the calypso business and what he has done for calypso and all of that.
That sounds real good. That sounds really fun.
Plenty music, plenty music. So tune in, Shiraz. I will send you the link to tune in to the station.
But not only tune in, but the thing about it is that many of his calypsos from way back when is a reality today.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So
You know,
Monday and
because when you
Tuesday,
talk
as I
about
say.
economic man, you have to go to school and work. All those things are reality in today's world.
Yep.
And was
Yep.
so many years ago.
Okay, so now we return to the subject of what to do with the CPEP program. And I had a discussion this morning on WhatsApp with Dr. Marlene Atz, the economist, and she is supposed to have come in. She said she had a meeting at 3 o'clock and hopefully she would finish in time to join us. But nevertheless, she gave me a short list of things that she thinks are possible. In fact, as she said, she presented this list back in 2015, 10 years ago, at a post budget seminar. She made the suggestions then to the Ministry of Finance on how the government could restructure CPEP so that its core remit remains to support semi and unskilled labor, especially females, but there will be a structured training component attached once they finish work by midday. So you finish work at midday in the CPEP program, whatever you're doing, and then there will be a training segment of the program in the afternoon. The employees could pursue formal academic qualifications such as a school leaving certificate program or learning new marketable skills, e.g., nail, tech, hairdressing, typing, etc., for the females and other like kinds of pursuits for the men, so that they could eventually leave CPEP and secure more sustainable employment. Those are some of the proposals which have been uh, advanced over the decades, really. I don't know how far they have got with them, but it's the kind of possibilities that are moving forward. Klein Weatherhead says that all of that is fine, but it must be done within a structured framework of planning. Um, and while Shiraz can believe some of that, he has outlined a number of programs, a number of possibilities in which people, the agricultural sector, I presume Shiraz, is short of workers and therefore can absorb lots more people into its programs.
Tony, just as you said that, I want to share something with you, right? Way back in the 17 and 80s, I don't know if you can recall, there were cooperatives that was very viable in this country. Right? Now, if you're giving some people 100 acres of land, everybody have a 2 acres or 5 acres, whatever size you want to give them, and you could put them in a community where you establish them within a cooperative, right? Because there's a lot of avenue where we can use to enhance what we want, where we want to go. Right? If it is that, because I can recall in Castlefield when we started off in way back in the 80s, we had a cooperative that was producing feed. We were at one point in time we were making ham, pickling meat and so on. When CMA, if you could recall, CMA closed down in the 80s, right? Comrade Clyde could tell you the battle we had with the meat processors limited up there, with all the financial problems that they eventually closed down. And we once we are organized, because take for instance, Patrick Manning started off Taba. You could recall that company? Trinidad and Tobago Agribusiness Association, where we were making flour, we were producing chips and all of that from local produce. When the UNC came into power, they never dealt with it. And after that, 5 years in 2015, the PNM came, and what was a Manning idea and so on. And nothing came out of that up to today, when millions, tens of millions of dollars were spent on equipment. So I continue to say, if it is that we don't have a cooperation from the parties, that when something is started and working good, but because it is named X among X party project that the other party come in would not follow up with. We will continue to have this discussion year after year of our election with government changes, and we will have the same problems where millions of dollars is spent to have something for the benefit of the government of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, but the government didn't see it. I could tell you because I was involved in the grass bank project where over $40 million was spent, and today everything is just rotting. Same thing with Taba. Equipment in Freeport there is just rotting away. That was once making flour out of cassava and sweet potato and was making chips, pepper sauce, and all of that from the local produce. I don't know where we going. I hope that people could understand what I'm saying and forget I don't know how, I don't know if Clyde and you, Tony, have an idea of how that could really change with parties changing every 5 or 10 years.
Well, I don't like to promote it on this program because this program is really not for me to promote my ideas. If you read my column,
but you're the moderator,
I'm going to say something now. In more and more as people like yourself and Clyde articulate that kind of thing, more and more the problem seems to be the political parties. And once we have political parties aligned along racial lines and party lines, fanatical party lines, we are going to come up against the same problems all the time because this whole CPEP business is a political party problem, and it's not going to be solved easily. It is how we transform the politics, Clyde and Shiraz, in my opinion, that will make a difference. If this government establishes a program around the CPEP model or whatever they call it, same damn thing. And if they lose in 5 years' time, then that will be shut down by the government that comes into power and they start off their own thing. So to me, the political party culture that we have really gets in the way of everything. Clyde.
Tony, in what Shiraz said just now, he gave two examples. Spoke about the cooperatives and so on. I can tell you when I joined the ADB in 1979, there was cooperative officers in the ADB. People used to go out to the cooperative meetings all the time and so on, and then that disappeared from the ADB program by the time 1990 reached. So the thing is, we never had a development plan for Trinidad and Tobago. And when you go back to 1962, Eric Williams proposed a notion of party politics, which was different from the notion of party politics that CLR James was proposing, and both of them were in the PNM. And also in 1962, Geddes Granger, as he was then, created an organization called Pegasus that developed an approach to national planning and development, which they called Project Independence. And when they published this document, Eric Williams said, listen, this thing looking like a political manifesto, so they ain't going nowhere with this thing. You understand? So when Caroni Limited was closed down, every time I go to Woodland and I pass, you know where there if you go off the M2 Ring Road and you're going down to Woodland, there was a huge building there where there was a lot of Caroni equipment, machinery and equipment parked up there. If the notion of cooperatives was used when Caroni Limited was closed down, and you had people farming, and you had this equipment there, and the equipment became a tractor station so it could provide those services to the farmers and in the cooperative and so on, and all of that, then that was an opportunity to do something like that. Now you come back beyond that time, you didn't do it then, what are we going to do now? And talking about cart before the horse, I saw this statement today from the joint trade union movement. I mean, I'm really puzzled as where their head is. Because they said, with the need to survive, these workers have become dependent on the program for their livelihoods. And measures must be put in place to mitigate the challenges that the workers will face whilst the transformation of the program takes place. What I was saying is, why do you shut it down and then try to transform it? So the trade union movement, which was telling us vote UNC a few weeks ago, is saying, well, the mitigation for this kind of putting the cart before the horse maybe include temporary income support, which we don't have. Placement in alternative state programs. Where are you going to put them? Or direct financial assistance until a permanent resolution is made. Now, what kind of nonsense is that? I mean, whether you fire people, then we're going to try and get them some money in their hand or put them in which other state places we going to put them?
What Clyde, what that creates is another CPEP.
Yeah.
Of a different kind. Another CPEP.
We have no unemployment insurance, which if people had contributions to that, then you could talk about income support. We don't have that. Placing them in other state programs. What state programs? You want the CPEP people to go and replace the corporation employees who cut in grass and so on? You want them to go and do that? I am told by Kwesi Atiba, who had a serious managerial kind of level input into the program when it was under swim call, that here was one person, she was doing a law degree, and she became a CPEP worker so she could earn some money so she could pay for her study. Is that the upward mobility that CPEP is supposed to create? So if we had a social welfare program to assist people in terms of education and so on, then she wouldn't have to be going to cut grass in the morning to go and do her law study. So that, like I say, in the absence of national planning, which Granger and Pegasus called for in 1962, Williams' idea was wherever the doc said is correct, and wherever the PNM says is what we need. So we don't need no plan.
One, obviously, of the outcomes of the CPEP program, again, call it what you will, is that there is no intention really on the part of the organizers to get the CPEP workers to be independent. Because if you do that, you run the possibility of losing a vote. Because then the individual is independent and he or she can think for themselves and they're not dependent on getting 2 weeks from the CPEP program, so that it's a long-term kind of indoctrination generation. I saw some people in the protests, and one of the persons was talking about his father and grandfather in the program. So it's a generational thing of CPEP workers and all that the many things that Shiraz Khan has put forward. They are wonderful ideas. However, the institutional framework, according to Clyde, is not there to have them get into serious and sustainable programs, work programs over a period of time. So, Clyde, how do we do this thing? Or are we in? How do we make this transformation? Or are we stuck with this frame of undevelopment or underdevelopment for the foreseeable future?
Well, I could only take the words of the Minister of Public Utilities to be the words of the government of Trinidad and Tobago at this point in time. All I'm hearing is we will transform the program, we will take it back to its original moorings, which was what? According to JTOM, here's what they say about the original moorings. the core purpose was to empower individuals and facilitate upward mobility, promoting environmental awareness. So, what is environmental awareness? So, if these things, if those were the core purposes, is that what we're going back to? What is the upward mobility that we can create out of CPEP? In the beginning, the upward mobility was we training the contractors in business and so on, so that they could possibly own their own businesses after. Then we were told we could train the workers. Under the UNC, there was training in the afternoons. They said for women to learn the same skills that you mentioned just now that Ms. At speaks about. All right? But where is the upward mobility? Do we need to have a program of this nature to provide training to the population?
Let me ask you, Raz, how hopeful are you that the government will make a significant change and not just seek to create another voter bank for when it faces the election in 5 years' time from now?
Okay, let me answer it this way, right? Why it is that you are in power for 5 years, every year over $60 billion for 1.3 million, $60 billion for 1.3 million people. Why you need a voter bank? Why you need to bribe people to vote for you? Why it is that we always have to think about, we have to do a campaign and bad talk and this one and the other. If it is, I don't know, any one of you, but I think if I was a prime minister with that kind of money, with the same attitude that I have, I don't need to even go on campaign to win back my election. Because the important thing here is that if you satisfy the needs of the people while continue to progress as a country to development and benefit for all, right? Then you don't need a voter bank. If it is that you intend to suppress certain aspects of what happening in the country and the money that's not going to be enough, and then you need a voter bank. So I don't think that if you concentrate on having a voter bank, which means you're not going to satisfy certain aspects of the country and you have to bribe people to work, I think that is absolutely insane to think about in the beginning of your office. I think we should look at how we could progress as a country, as citizens, because I will tell you something. If it is that you take those same CPEP, okay, there's a percentage that don't want to change. Fine, we can live with it. But if you that want to change and who you're going to bring in now, and you change the concept of CPEP and tell them, look, we have two things, a couple of things that we need to do. Our sportsmen need better food, this, that, and the other. Our people that go into school, we need to, because let me tell you something, if you don't know, at one point in time, we were producing over 15 million liters of milk in this country before 2000. And today, we are down to 1 million liters of milk. The land is still there. Right? The suppression of the agriculture sector continue from government into government without only paying lip service. Right? You continue to treat the people like if they are the rogues of the society and we still uneducated. Right? We did a cost of production survey in 2004, which I actually fought for, to show where the farmers is in this country and how we survive. Right? And where are we? Where do we really want to have a benefit in terms of everybody in the society with, right? And don't think about a voter bank. And that way we will be able to progress as a country. The people who are presently involved in CPEP, they may not want to be farmed, but we could also prepare them to do in some other things in terms of a cooperative that they could develop the technology for processing, agro-processing, other processes that are taking place in the society and benefit us because our exportation in terms of GDP for the agriculture sector is less than 1%. So there is avenue of growth and development with the little push of the state that our agriculture sector and other aspects take, for instance, the entertainers, the cultural aspect of Trinidad and Tobago. Everybody promoting their culture. Cuba promoting, Jamaica, Guyana now with their culture they're promoting. Barbados. What happened to Trinidad and Tobago? If our individuals don't go out there and make it big, they don't get promotion. So we have avenues where we don't need a voter bank at this time. But what we need to do is to develop everybody so that at the end of the 5-year term, you don't have to be going every night and looking to beg people to vote because you did something to the benefit of everybody in the country. That is how I answer your question, Mr. Fraser.
And the same question really to Clyde, how do we change the politics? Because clearly what is in the way is the politics of the day, the political alignments, the political mobilization, and therefore the government in power will have to satisfy those needs when it gets into office and forget about planning, as you talked about, and all other matters.
Well, I have written a book about Pegasus and its history. And one of the things they said back in 1962.
It's up on my shelf there, Clyde.
Yes. What they said was that until we move away from worshipping at the altar of sectoral interests, that translates those words into the modern day 1% of Pandey's parasitic oligarchy and focus on the national interest in terms of satisfying the needs of the majority. Because part of the reason we have that milk production going down the hill is because Nestle's had their own needs and desires to make their profits in a different way. And that's why we no longer have milk production in the way it was. And in all other sectors of the economy, we are producing to meet the needs of the multinationals or the local conglomerates. So if that is the focus, and I think it is the focus of both political parties that are called major, until there's a different focus in terms of the needs of the population, and there's a different kind of political organization that deals with that, we're going to have this constant exchange, a revolving door, red and yellow, and going basically nowhere.
Yeah. Well, it's my view, as I said, that we have to change the political party system entirely because this thing is rotten. It is self-seeking. It is focused on race. And it is really not in the interest of the national community. It's in the interest of the mobilization of each of the political parties, as the major parties, that is, as they seek to control the purse for 5 years into the future and hopefully to get another 5 years into the future. I don't think it can be transformed. I'm talking about it here, but I really don't think it can be transformed because it does not suit the interests of the two major political parties who have cordoned off the political culture in the ways that they see it. All of the screaming and shouting now about corruption and this and so on, you hear it every time a new party comes into office, and I can bet at the end of this 5-year term, nobody will be in jail because of all of the allegations and the findings that are supposed to be being made. So, gentlemen, after my little speech, and I really don't like to make speeches on these programs.
It is ideal. It is ideal as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago and who has been following anything to share your views. I mean,
Yes.
I say, I have a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
If you remember, you know,
Yes, go
at
ahead.
the end, go ahead.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. You have children, you have grandparents, and I'd probably, I don't know if you're a great grandparent as yet.
Only grandchildren so far.
At the end of the day, you would like to see your children and grandchildren and they grow up and have a better society to live in. Within the last couple of years, our society has deteriorated in terms of crime. Our social order has deteriorated in terms of respect, right? And all of that comes from the lack of employment opportunity, sustainable employment opportunity. How do we get the politicians and them to understand that if you don't have enough sustainable employment for the people, one, the circulation of the finances wouldn't go around in terms of satisfying the needs, and two, people would not want to work for $120 a day when they could take up a gun and rob a supermarket and get $5,000. So how do you change that concept? A party from party that come into power and does not take care of the social aspect of an enabling environment and constructive construction of employment. I don't know if I get
Yeah, Shiraz, I don't think the political party and more broadly, I don't think the political culture, party culture can change. I think that we enter a period of yet another government in office, and all of the early signs are there about the focus on what they want to do and what they will not do, etc., etc. So I don't think that the party politics can change. The only way it can change is when the whole business of mobilization is different. And I have advocated that what is required to be done is a government to find a way, a means of establishing a government of capable people, of technocrats, and through a different kind of process that we now have, going through the emphasis about still having political parties, but surely not political parties who are in government. Let them represent the people, which they don't at this point in time in any significant kind of way. So my solution, like Clyde has said, that there is need for planning. My solution is to have an overthrow of and when I say overthrow, I don't mean any violent overthrow. I don't want no police come and lock me up for that and so on. There has to be an overthrow of the political system that we now operate, because it was not established in the interest of the national community. It was established in the interest of the political parties. I don't know if you remember, some time ago, there was a local government official from the UNC who went to some kind of program that the government had for local government officials. And when he returned, because the UNC boycotted the programs, he was told by Kamla Prasad Bisesa in no uncertain manner. And I don't make a distinction between Prasad Bisesa and Keith Rowley or Penny Bettles, etc., etc. All of them are the same thing. But when he returned to the party, the leader of the opposition told him, when he talked about his constituency and local government, her response was to the effect, forget about national interests and local government. Think about the UNC interest. And the PNM people might say it a little bit differently, but it's the same thing that they mean. So that the political party system, in my view, and by all the evidence is not simply a view in isolation. All the evidence indicates that the political party system that we've developed in this post-independent period has not worked for us and will not work for us. My preaching for the day.
Well, your preaching is correct, but the question is changing the system. And part of the disappointment, like when I saw this statement today from JTAM, JTAM is not saying, here in our government, they say we are speaking as an organization that represents the interests of workers. JTAM is not saying, government, here what to do. reinstate them contractors, reinstate them workers, let them work while you're talking about restructuring the program. Instead of trying to tell the government how to keep the workers out of work why after you put the cart before the horse. That is not how this thing works.
Well,
Yeah, well,
it has been a system. It has been a system in operation from couple of years ago. Should we then now say that, or with the assistance of everybody in terms of the leadership area, that we could sit down and have a reasonable, could that ever happen, Mr. Fraser, that some people could sit down and have a reasonable discussion of how we could solve this problem without it going into some other realm of chaos and confusion? Because I am of the opinion that every community now, and by the way, let me just tell you something that I shared with my MP recently. Is about beautifying Carson Field from when it was 40 years ago to beautify this time around, but not with flowers and flowers trees. I am talking about the entire area, planting fruit trees that people could benefit not only from who living here, but in terms of some other aspect of processing that taking place. Take for instance, planting what we just call hog mango or rose mango or and long mango, which has now been scarce because people have taken the land where it had plenty of those trees and cut it down and put housing scheme or some other business and them kind of thing. So we are going to suffer in a little while from now because we fauna and birds and all of that won't have enough food. So we have to think something like that. So I am just sharing this with you. We could take the communities like Wallerfield and Castlefield, Esmeralda, Turu, and Chagaramas, where we have these agricultural projects going, and beautify with something different. We could do that in terms of creating employment with some of these CPEP workers. So they will now learn to graft a plant. They will now know how to grow a plant from seed and remove the original plant, which is a rose mango, and put a Julie mango, a cutlass mango, a starch mango. We could do that. So we are creating something. I am sharing my ideas and my views open because that I am a Trinidadian and I want to see Trinidad go better. So what you could do now is have a larger volume of mango juice on the market to export. We now have Coachella that we could not only sell in Trinidad but export Coachella and achar and chutney and things outside. These are things that we could do and make money, but the politicians and the financiers and them wouldn't want that because they wouldn't have it at their hand in that kitty. Yeah. That kitty would belong to the people. You understand?
And that will break the dependence. That will break the dependence that now exists for people on CPEP and all of the other programs. And it's not only CPEP, you know. I remember Ralph Henry back in the 80s or 90s talking about the whole country being undue. The corporations and the I was going to call a number and a group, but I don't want to incense anybody. All of them on CPEP, you know, not CPEP, well, Jude was at that time, so it's CPEP now. Everybody feeding from the trough. Basilio Pandey told that to his ministers, incidentally, if we forget. I don't know if I remember that. He said, everybody's feeding at the trough.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that when you empower people, if you as a government choose to empower people, after 5 years you will have some support in terms of what you had made them into doing now and being a businessman or somebody to benefit into the society. Because let me tell you something, you give 10,000 people projects of planting fruit trees and developing communities that is large areas like Wallerfield, Castlefield, and so on. Even around where, even in Babande village in Manzalina and Tonapuna, where we have these agriculture projects. and you're going to have something at the end of the day. You cannot. You could say, all right, Castlefield soil is not good for mangoes. We're going to plant cashew. We're going to get some more Brazilian nuts and plant cashew. We're going to plant sapodilla, that kind of thing. So the ideas that we're throwing out here is not casting a stone of where we could do. You do the research as Comrade Clyde said, and we come up with a plan of how we're going to make it work. You don't want you would take almost 30,000 people off the street into our program and creating them in the next 2-3 years where we could benefit from some people processing mango and exporting with the natural help of the Ministry of Labor and all of these people to export. We have to get people involved. It's not only the big businessmen must now leave making some other product and come into here because they have plenty mango in Castlefield. We must be able to protect the vulnerable and save them from somebody else taking away the business from them, or when our government change. I am saying is that we have to see how we could give people the empowerment to feel comfortable that they're going to produce. And then let me tell you something. If you plant the tree, we're going to have much thieves come in here, because if you have 200 people planting the trees, at least 10 people could do a drive about and do their own neighborhood watch in terms of avoiding people from coming and stealing. All these things could create a holistic society of growing and going further into the world status or benefiting into the country. That is how I seen it. But if you want to talk about the politics and the CPEP and this and the vote bank, then we are going to continue to go down on the all aspect of statistics into the larger world.
The thing is, the politicians are not going to voluntarily do that. Unless people are mobilized and push the politicians in a direction, because we have seen it under the UNC in the PP period. There was a huge consultation on constitutional reform. I sat through all those 13 sessions, and then a bill came up in the end that kind of little bit might have empowered people. People were so happy to hear, hey, I could fire my MP again, the right to recall. And then the UNC, because Jacona frightened them, they said, well, let me put in something inside there that we can have runoff elections because they're afraid Jack. Then PNM come and say, oh, we have this big constitution process. We set up a committee to talk about how the process should go. And then when the committee take the public views and put it in a document, they call a special convention and say, we agreed none of that thing, they want to talk there. And it never went nowhere. So they have no interest in changing the governance structure.
The status quo. No. I was invited, incidentally, Clyde, to this last one with, what's his name, man from San Fernando, former speaker, Barindra, whatever his name is, Cherry Farrell and Sinan and etc. I was invited to, I'm not too sure exactly what they would have me do, but some kind of moderating exercise. And I said, no, there's a mama guy thing. I really have time for that, because the time frame set out for it, not simply to get or wholly to get a document, but to get an intermediate document which you could plan for. And then half the year gone, and they say, well, it's too late for election, because they don't want change. They don't want transformation. That's
so
a bottom.
The thing is that the anniversary of 1970, in that period of February to April, is past. We just celebrated the anniversary of 1937. And as though the two banners that were raised in 1937, let those who labor hold the reins, and in 1970 it says, power to the people. It's as though we forget all of that. And the people who came out of 1937 in terms of the trade union movement is telling us in 2025, vote UNC. And when UNC fire 10,000 people, say, here, let me get them some money. Let me see if we could put them somewhere else to work while we planning what else to do. So it is a difficult
Yeah,
situation
but
when
right, you
even
can't come down on
the basic defense organizations of the workers are not defending the interests of the workers. So we need to somehow, in 1970 there was impetus from what happened in Sir George Williams University, but the fact is that the same Granger who created Pegasus in 1962 went among the university students and spoke about, let us put the national interest first and organize. And there was a different kind of politics, and there was a different kind of approach to the nation, and that is what we need to rebuild. In the absence of that, these two parties will come and go, exchange positions with each other, and leave everything just as it is, because that is comfort to them.
That facilitates them. Shiraz, your last comment before we leave.
Okay. I hope that with what it is taking place globally in terms of the global warming, and we see where large farms are being destroyed because of a decision in the US to remove migrant labor. We've seen large farms are slaughtering all their animals and closing down fruits, vegetables. All of that is going to affect us because we have hundreds, or not even hundreds, but thousands of people outside during the harvest season in terms of apples and vegetables and so on being employed outside. Not so clear. Yeah. So the thing about it is that we need to now understand where we have to go. And if we continue, as you say, every 5 years, and we change and we're going backward instead of forward, then we're going to have a serious problem of not only crime, but a crisis where our people would not be able to eat properly, and thereby having a problem in terms of not only now robbing for money, but robbing for food. And may God forbid that had to happen in our time. Right? We have a problem where you have a war going on between Russia and Ukraine, and that is affecting our supply. The price of the goods continue to escalate because between Russia and Ukraine, the two largest producers of wheat, we having problems because India have decided to hold back and stop exporting most of the goods and satisfy their people. I don't know if it will be negotiated while the Prime Minister of India is here. I don't know. But we got to look at what's taking place on the outside. And if we don't put our house in order, our country could lead into more chaos than what is happening outside here. Because food will be something that is very important, and the livelihood of people, because we may have the money to import, but we may not have the goods to import into this country.
Shiraz Khan, thank you very much for being with us this afternoon, and so to Clyde Weatherhead. And we continue to soldier. One of the reasons that I'm doing this program is hopefully that somebody will be touched somewhere with a thought outside of the going politics, and maybe we will get some kind of fillip moving forward. Gentlemen, thank you again for being with us. And just to remind our listeners and viewers that come Monday, King Sparrow is going to be at the
Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Fraser, for having me come at Flight. Thanks for being here with us. And may New Era TT Radio continue to grow in strength.
Okay, Chalo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Tony, and thank you very much, Shiraz, and of course, Mr. Weatherhead for being on the program. This has been the Drive Time Exchange right here on New Era TT Radio. Of course, you'll get the replay of this program at around 8:20 a.m. on newerattradio.com.
He getting transported from the door, and this poker they going whole day and unpaid they still draw a big fat pay if they like. They could call a big strike. So I tell them sweet, sweet Trinidad, for all of this country back. have to get up and get. And anytime things are a little bad, man, you have a garden in your backyard, and no doubt the food almost in your mouth.